All right, we're live.
Let's go. Bro, hear me out. Goes remote.
Episode
Finally.
3, baby.
Episode 3 across the world. I am currently sitting in beautiful Southern Maryland at my parents' house, about 45 minutes outside of DC, Baltimore area. And let's see, where is Kyle K. Lou at? Where are you at?
I'm on the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii. So, uh,
Hawaii, Hawaii.
little vacation. So, yeah,
Ooh, let's
yeah,
go. Christmas
ni
time. Christmas
ni
vacay.
yeah, nice little break from the cold weather out in Colorado. So, yeah,
Yeah, for real.
pumped to be here. So,
Bro, it's colder. It's colder in Maryland than it is in Colorado. I mean, Colorado was probably when I left, it was like 50, so it wasn't that bad. But in Maryland, it snowed here this morning, and it's not been cold enough to stick, but it was like that humid East Coast cold with the wind. It's like 30 degrees this morning. I hit 15 miles on the treadmill. My happy ass was inside, bro. I felt so soft. People are just looking at me on the treadmill, just chilling there for 2 hours, and I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I'm not dealing with the wind and the yesterday got caught in the rain for 6 miles. It's just miserable, bro. I hate it. But um that leads me
takes
into
you
my
back.
bro, hear me out. Yeah,
Okay, let's hear it.
my first bro, hear me out. My bro, hear me out. East Coast cold or just humid cold in general. I guess that could be south, north, whatever. Humid cold, places where it's humid and it's cold, way worse than Colorado or California cold. So it could be, I've said this since I got to Colorado, but it could be, like I just said, this morning was 30 degrees in Maryland. It could be 30 degrees in Colorado, and I would consider wearing shorts and probably a long sleeve. It would cross my mind, and you could do it, especially if the sun's out. 30 degrees in anywhere where it's any type of humid or damp, no altitude, way worse. You cannot warm up from that shit, and it's just different. I mean, it's such a cop out answer. I feel like it's a very bad joke to be like, oh, it's not the heat, it's the humidity, and it's the same in the winter, bro. It's the cold. The humid cold is, for lack of a better term, it is, well, I hate it. Like I cannot stand it. It's so I would much rather be back, our happy asses back in Gunny, negative temperatures, but at least if the sun comes out, it's bearable and you don't have to take a 30-minute sit down shower after you get home just to warm up, where I feel like I have to do that pretty much
Dude,
every day in the winter.
the crazy thing, I've actually thought about this so much. You know how when we were in Gunnison, everyone would be like, "Oh, it's one of the coldest places in the country." You
Yeah,
know, like sometimes, anyways, because it would
yeah.
be negative whatever, like negative 20, negative 30. I thought about this all the time. I'm like, yeah, it can be like brutally cold in Gunnison for sure, but it was never humid. So and I don't have a lot of experience with like humid cold, but I was always like, how, like, what is this compared to like, Detroit or something like middle of the winter? Like, I don't know if it's like
Yeah.
actually like the, like, is it the coldest place just based on like the, actual like number of the temperature? But it like how bearable is it compared to like other places, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I feel like in Colorado, especially in Gunny, it was like if you had any skin exposed, you could get frostbite, but you wouldn't really know versus something like you said, Detroit. That is just miserable. I can't imagine Detroit or like a Green Bay or the Midwest state, or I guess even like Vermont, Boston, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. I imagine those places get really messed up. Like you can't go outside. I had no problem going outside when it was negative temps in Gunny. I mean, I definitely had a problem doing it, but
I
it
didn't enjoy
wasn't.
it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. It's just different. It's like that meme you see on Twitter. It's that time of year where you get in the car and you just scream.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's more of a humid cold thing versus Colorado cold is you still do that. I still probably do that once a day in Colorado when it gets really cold, but it's just different, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, being cold is not fun. I think we, we haven't talked about this, but I feel like our 5 years or my 5 years, you were at Gunnison for 5? Were you
Four.
5? Okay, 4. My 5 years in Gunnison, bro, I think it just like broke me on winter. I was just like, I don't, I spent like 5 fairly like tough years in like the Gunnison cold. I'm just good with warm weather. Like I'd much prefer like summer, like spring and like early fall. But yeah, I could scrap winter. That's why hopefully one day I can just move to Hawaii in
I
the
was gonna say.
in the winter time or something. But yeah,
Yeah, you're
anyways.
you're saying this sitting in Hawaii on December 21st. I hate the cold is a very first world problem.
Yeah, it is. No, yeah. I mean, complaining about being cold in Boulder, Colorado is an extremely first world problem. But yeah, no, for sure. Anyways, yeah,
Jeez.
I'm good. I'm good with warm weather. So I do have something to kick us off though about my trip.
Okay. I mean I have a crazy story too, but I'll hear yours first. I
Oh
knew
shit.
this would
Well,
happen, bro. Traveling at the holidays, we should travel every week. That should be our podcast, just traveling.
unlimited content, unlimited content.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So this may not be as cool to everyone else as it is to me, but so Val and I got here a couple days ago, and like the day before we left, normally when I'm coming out here, I like because I my so some background, my mom side of the family is all from Hawaii. My mom works for the airline, so I've been able to travel like back and forth to Hawaii throughout my whole life and spend a lot of time out here. So like naturally like fell in love with surfing when I was a young kid. Not like a good surfer by any means, but love to do it. And so I'd always like check the surf reports, right? Like when I'm coming out to Hawaii and stuff and try to surf as much as I can when I'm out here.
Island
And
boy shit.
yeah, normal, normal. But I didn't really look at the surf at all when I was coming out here because I was just like really busy week with work, like ending like the year and like everything else going on, holidays and whatever. So I look, Val and I like, Val actually comes in, which was hilarious, and she shows me like the surf report.
Yeah.
And during the winter on the North Shore of Oahu, the waves can get very big. Like in the summer, it's like a lake, but during the
Mhm.
winter, it's like basically all the swells are happening up north and like the Alaska and Aleutian Islands, and it pushes swell down here. It's not like always big, but it can get really big.
Mhm.
Um, anyways, so she shows me the surf report, and then I'm like, oh shit, like the waves are kind of big. Like the first day we were here, they're like 20 feet, which is
Dang.
big, like that's pretty big. And then I look at the forecast like for the days after for the first like few days we're here, and like today it's like 20 to 25 feet, and then tomorrow it's like 30 to 40 feet. And
Damn.
I'm like, okay, that's like that. So that's like pretty abnormal. I mean, even as much as time I've I spent out here, I've only seen the waves maybe that big once. I mean, we'll see on like tomorrow if they're bigger than what I've seen when I was younger. But there's this super famous surf event called the Eddie Aikau Invitational, and it's
Mhm.
at Waimea Bay. You can look it up. But basically, it's a surf event. It's based around this like famous Hawaiian lifeguard that died, but he was a famous Hawaiian lifeguard. He like pioneered surfing at Waimea Bay, and he
That sounds
died
like
on,
this
huh?
sounds like the plot of Surf's Up.
I mean,
The exact plot
bro,
of Surf's Up.
bro, hear me out. Surf's Up, the greatest animated movie of all time. Okay, don't get me started. Um, but anyways, so they don't run this event every year. So you know how like most it's like a race or like other surf events, they'll run like every year no matter what.
Yeah.
They'll only run this event if the waves are like perfect and like big enough. And so like
Mhm.
in 40 years they've only run the event 10 times.
Dang.
Uh so but it's literally been like one of my absolute highest bucket list item things to see in my lifetime. And it's super hard to time because like you basically would because since I don't live here, you'd have to basically be able to like drop everything, go to Hawaii in like 2, 3 days notice.
Yeah.
Anyways, first day we get here or second day we get here on Friday, they called the contest on for tomorrow. And
No shit.
we're a mile, like we're staying a mile away from Waimea Bay. So yeah, I've been like tripping out. Like so I'm like
Dang.
super psyched. So there'll be like if you look up the Aikau Invitational, it's like imagine uh, like a massive stadium just like in a valley, like looking at waves. Like there'll be like 50, 60,000 people like on the beach and like surrounding cliffs and stuff.
Damn.
I'm tripping. So it's gonna be sick. So when we do our recap best moments of 2025, we'll see if it makes the list. It's been a pretty banger year,
Oh,
so we'll
it's
see.
got it's gotta make it. Yeah, stay tuned next week. Next week is
Let's
best
see if you can see
moments
the
top
waves.
top
I'm
10, top
looking,
5.
you can kind of see the waves
Yeah, it's pretty far.
like right here. You can't, they're huge though. Like even right now, yeah, it's insane. So,
Dang. Have you been
all right.
out surfing yet?
No, 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 the no, the waves since we've been here have been like 3 to 4 times like overhead. So like
Yeah,
big. I mean, they're
massive.
like very, very dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and I'm
you got to know
not,
what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would, yeah, nope, not a very good surfer. Definitely would die. So, but
Not
hopefully
enough of an
it'll get
island boy.
smaller. It'll get smaller after. I don't know. I haven't honestly. I've normally I come out here and I'm just like fiending to surf, and yeah, I haven't, I haven't yet. So, we'll probably wouldn't surf until after tomorrow anyway. So,
Not gonna hop in the
anyways.
competition.
Yeah, I mean, I asked and they said no, which was shocking, honestly. Um,
No
but
walk-ons.
yeah, no walk-ons. But yeah, the other thing too is that they like the crazy thing about this event, it's not like you qualify for it. So basically, they just like hand pick all the surfers, and like half of them are just like these like Hawaii legends. Like, dude, there's like I don't know exactly how old some of these guys are, but there's like guys that won the event like 20 plus years ago that are still in it. Like I think they're in their like 60s or 70s. Like
Dang.
it's not just like, oh, you take like the best whatever like surfers based on whatever. It's basically like they just like handpick the like basically like the gnarliest guys or like Hawaii like legends. Like it's pretty insane. It'll be cool. Hopefully, I've like built this up my whole life, so hopefully it's just like super insane. But yeah, anyways, huge bucket list item hopefully happening, but they could still call the contest off tomorrow morning if the waves aren't like absolutely perfect. So we'll see.
Dang. That's crazy. You just got to get edged until the very last
Oh,
minute.
I've been edging hard since yesterday morning, so we'll see. Yeah. I mean, it'll still be sick either way because waves will still be huge, but yeah, they literally won't run the contest unless the waves are absolutely perfect.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Like if you look up like the last year, they literally had it last year and it was like an all-time year. Like the waves were like the biggest ever. Literally, dude, imagine like a I don't even know how like wide the bay is. Maybe like 800. I don't know. It might be like a little less than like half a mile or like it's somewhere between probably like 400 meters and half a mile. There'll be waves so big when they run the 80 cow, the wave will like close out the bay sometimes, like go all the way across.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, I could talk about this all day, but yeah, I'm pretty excited. So,
As long as it's not a running podcast, we're good. You can blurt
yeah.
on about whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what do you got? What do you got?
Hey, yeah, so my trip over here was absolutely bonkers. You got to remind me. I think this will be a shorter podcast, but you got to remind me to get into some running stuff because I just thought of some stuff I want to at least talk about. But
Yeah, I have some
so
running stuff
yeah,
too that I want to talk about.
basically today's the 21st, so today is Saturday. Originally I was supposed to come home. I think I've complained about the prices of flights on here, maybe episode 1, but I was supposed to come home on Friday at like say 10 a.m. Boulder time and get into DC at 3. Um, Long story short, I switched my flight from Friday to Thursday because Elise was going to Mexico for a wedding on Thursday. And so I was like, why would I
Hang out the
drive
next
to the
day.
airport? yeah, drive to the airport, drive back, drive to the airport at the same exact time. Both days I'll have to run at probably 6 a.m. and it's just not a good move. And so finally the flights went down enough to make it worth it because now we're sharing parking. It's this whole like the whole background is not really necessary. But so basically wake up 6 a.m. We're out running in Boulder before the sun's out. I have my headlamp strapped on, everything. We're all good. Everything's going to plan. Get in 8 miles before the sun even rises. We head out
Oh,
from Boulder at around it had to have been 7:30, 7:25. And so we're chilling, gonna get to DIA. If everything goes well, both have TSA pre-check, everything goes well, we'll be able to hit the new Snooze restaurant in DIA just for a quick pancake flight and then just go our separate ways. Everything, bro, when I tell you two happy campers in this car right now, two happy campers, just everything's going to plan, saw a sweet sunrise. We're listening to music, kind of just chilling. Where I'm stoked for the snooze breakfast. We're 30 minutes in. I don't even know where we were. I could see it in my head, but the whole Denver airport drive kind of blurs together. 30 minutes in, Elise says, I don't have my passport. I said, what? I just laughed, bro. I just laughed and I said, what? And she said, I don't have my passport. What should I do? I said, well, we got to turn around. Our flight took off at the same time. She was going to Mexico. I was going here. But I said, we got to turn around. She said, no, let me drop you off on the side of the road. You can Uber to the airport. I said, Elise, unfortunately, I don't think an Uber driver is going to pick me up on the side of the toll road here. So I was like, I mean, there's a million flights from Denver to DC, so I'll just come back with you and I'll change it. I'm supposed to go back tomorrow anyway. It doesn't really matter to me. We got to get you to this wedding in Mexico, so you take priority here. She's like, no, let me drop you off. I was like, homie, I am not getting dropped off on the side of the road, regardless of what you say. So then she says, can you Google? I don't know if she'll listen to this in a timely manner, but then she says, can you Google if you can travel internationally without a passport? I
no
said, I
way.
cannot. I said, I cannot Google that for you, unfortunately. She said, can you just Google it real quick? I tossed that into Google. My phone hasn't been the same since. So, yeah, we have to take the nearest exit, loop all the way back to Boulder.
Oh
We
God.
leave Boulder. My flight takes off 5 minutes before hers. We leave Boulder at 8:40. My flight takes off at 9:40. Takes off at 9:40. So we're driving madman to I got to be behind the wheel. It wasn't my truck either, it was her car, so it wasn't as fast. But I also didn't think I'd be
Chevy
going
Equinox
as
does have some incredible
let me tell you,
performance
bro.
specs.
Let me tell you. I got the max out of that car. I never thought I would hit the speeds we were going in that car more than I've hit in my truck. But I hit that. I got flashed by a cop once. He didn't pull me over, which was dope. But I got flashed by a cop once on the
Oh
way.
Jesus.
Pull into Denver airport. Obviously, no chance in hell we're doing long term. Rip it into short term parking right next to the airport. I shit you not. I step foot in the Denver airport at 9:20. My flight takes off at 9:40.
Where like doors
We
close or like when did boarding end? Would it did
um
boarding end at 9:40 or did the plane literally
boarding
depart?
was yeah, the plane was supposed to depart at 9:40. Boarding ended at 9:30 or
Oh
whatever
no.
the like. So it was, but her flight took off after mine. So I was just in it to get her there, to get her there for the wedding. And I was just honestly going to get kind of drunk in the airport. I was down for that because it was just like a random day. I wasn't doing anything. And
Yeah.
so we sprinted into security, took the TSA pre-check, 5 minutes through security. Elise took a different security line than I did because I was like, oh, I'm going to get through faster because like I can just get through, and then I'm gonna stop her plane for her, and then she'll make it, and I'll be this hero. She gets through security faster than me. She gets on the train in Denver before me. Her train takes off, and I'm just chilling there. I'm like, okay, what beers am I gonna drink? It's 9:48 or 9:30, and I got to start housing these beers. But I was like, I'll give it the old college try. I get off at A terminal. I sprint from the middle of the terminal to A15, which is damn near the end. I get there and I was like, surely Elise made her flight, so I'm not even gonna check. I get to my plane, they say they're like, we're waiting on a transfer bag. Are you Charlie? And I was like, yeah, that's me. And they're like, you're good. Like we're waiting on a transfer bag, so you can just get on the plane. I was the stereotypical last dude on the plane. Everyone's seatbelted in, everyone's ready to go, and I just walk on with my bag and all my. I was pouring sweat, bro, because I just like I was legitimately out of breath. And I get on the plane. The dude asked me why I'm so late. I had to tell him that whole story I just told you. And yeah, I get on the plane. The poor lady next to me probably thought she had the row to her or the seat next to her open. She didn't, and then she just stuck there next to a dude, doused in sweat. And we then we take off, and so we're in the air. And then I text Elise. I said I made it. Like I can't believe I made it. My flight took off 10 minutes before yours, so I'm sure you made it. Like what's going on? She said I didn't make it. They closed the doors on her because I think it might have been like because it was international or something. So they closed the doors on her, and I just taken off in the air, bro. And so yeah, that was that was crazy. I literally stepped foot in DIA at 9:20, and my flight left the gate. Like I shit you not, when I sat down and closed the thing on my suitcase, we put the plane in reverse and we were out, bro. It was nuts. It was
Dang.
so absurd.
What did Elise end up having to do?
She had to wait like an hour and a half, which worked out for her because I didn't get to eat breakfast, bro. So it worked out for her. So I guess it didn't really work out, but she had to wait an hour and a half. So she got breakfast, and then they connected her through Houston. So it was like instead of a direct flight, it was a 7 or 8 hour travel day with a layover in Houston. So she got there. But that was the other thing is now I'm sitting on this plane 10 minutes into the plane ride, still vigorously sweating because I just sprinted probably close to 6 minute pace, literally out of breath. And then I didn't have anything to eat. So my stomach is audibly growling. And so this poor lady didn't have her any like music in or anything. She was listening. I took out my AirPods just to like try to sit myself in her shoes. I'm this sweaty guy with my stomach is making these absurd noises because I haven't eaten anything. This poor lady probably thought I was so sick and I'm just gonna yak everywhere. But yeah, United started selling breakfast food, like continental breakfast on the planes for flights over 1,000 miles. So I got a breakfast burrito and a little fruit snack, and I was a hamper until I spilled it all over my sweater. But yeah, it was absurd. And then yeah, got to DC on time, and I've been here ever since. So yeah, try not to forget your passport, kids.
Dude, that's insane. Okay, I actually kind of have a like one last and this can segue into track because this is actually a track related travel story that's kind of along those same lines. Did I ever tell you about the trip back from the Diamond League final, like how I got home?
No.
Okay. So, all right, so Val runs, this is in Brussels in Belgium.
Yeah.
We were out there for like 2 weeks. We hung out in like Leuven. Well, she ran in Rome. We were in Rome uh for the day of the like day before day of the race, and then like 3 days after we went around, got engaged. That was cool.
I
But
was
then
gonna
we went
say,
to
don't forget that.
Leuven. Yeah, went to Leuven and hung out there for like a week and a half, and then went to Brussels for the Diamond League final. Anyways, so my mom works for United. So like sometimes when I travel, instead of buying tickets, especially if I'm traveling by myself, like for this Hawaii trip, we just bought tickets because I
Yeah.
don't want to deal with flying standby. But because my mom works for United, I can fly standby for like relatively very cheap.
Yeah.
And so like, especially for a lot of like Val's races, it's like just nice to save money on. Anyways, so she runs in the race, doesn't have the race she wanted, got tripped on the last lap, whatever. But her flight the next day was at like 10 a.m. or 12 p.m., whatever it was. It was like at a reasonable time. But when you're flying standby, right, you always have the chance of not making the flight.
Yeah.
So essentially, I'm like looking at the flights, and the flights can like change and like overnight. They can look good, and then the flight that you're going to go for can look terrible. So it's always best when you fly standby to try go on the first flight of the day, especially
Yeah.
if it looks good, because like one flight gets canceled, your whole day like could ruin everything, right? Um, Anyways, all the flights looked great, and I'm like, I knew the risks, and I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna like go on. I'm gonna try for Val's flight, and hopefully nothing goes wrong, right? I wake up at like 8 or like I don't know what it was. It was like basically like an hour and 20 minutes before the first flight of the day took takes off. I wake up. I think I wake up to my a text my mom from my mom because she'll check the flights for me sometimes because
Yeah.
she's just like, wants to be helpful. And she's like I just see like something along the lines of like flights imploded, make sure you're going for the first flight. And I'm like, I just wake up, like when you wake up and you're tired and then like something horrible's happening and you're like immediately awake.
Yeah.
So I like immediately I like shake Val awake. I'm like, wake up, fucking go. And like get to the airport. Literally, it's an international flight back to I think it was back to Chicago or something. And I'm like, we're like 30 minutes away from the airport. It's an international flight. The flight leaves in like 70 minutes or something. Like call an Uber like before I'm even like packed, head straight downstairs, get in the Uber. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna make it. Like literally, I get to the airport. It's an international flight. The flight ends boarding in like 15 minutes probably. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there's absolutely zero chance. Like if I don't make this flight, I'm not getting home or I have to purchase like a whatever $2,000 ticket.
Hmm.
And or at least I'm not getting home that day. And so I just like get into security. I cut everybody. Just like that douchebag, just like just kind of like skirt my way around like the stanchions. And I'm just kind of like, oh God, sorry guys, I don't want to do this. But like I'm literally not gonna make my flight. I like just basically cut all the way through security. I like get to security. The line in security that I'm in is not moving for like 15 minutes. So then like I cut into a different line or it was like 5 minutes. It was like clear there was like a stroller or something. Anyways, after security and international flights, there's passport control, right?
Hmm.
To like check your passport. Dude, it's like the longest line you could possibly imagine. And I like run up to the front of the line, and this is how it's a track story. I run up to the front of the line. Lo and behold, Joe Kovacs, 2024 silver
Let's
medalist,
go.
is sitting like the next person about to go. I go up
Let's
to him like,
go.
Joe Kovacs, you're the man. I'm about to miss my flight. Is there any chance I could cut you in line? And he's like, absolutely. Us track guys got to stick together. Daps me
Us
up
chat
and
guys.
and dude daps me up with his absolutely monster hand. I'm like, holy crap, this guy could literally kill me. Um, nicest dude ever. Lets me go in front of him, and I literally same thing. Sprint through the airport, somehow make the flight, get home. Yeah, but yeah, shout out Joe Kovacs. Without Joe Kovacs, I would have
Yo,
never made
Kovacs,
that flight.
USA, USA.
Yeah, it was sick. He was
That's
actually so cool
crazy.
about it. It was so cool about it. So yeah,
Dang, shout out. I know he's our
yeah,
number one listener right now, so I'm sure he's stoked.
yeah. So,
He,
anyways, yeah. All right. Before we get into track stuff, just because we got a cool Instagram message on the bro. Hear me out Instagram,
let's
guys, go
go.
follow it. It's bro underscore hear me out. But we got a
Yeah, not even a
cool,
personal Instagram.
yeah, we got a cool message from his name's Brandon,
Let's go.
and he
Shout
said,
out.
shout out Brandon,
Big B.
when's the Coro sponsorship giveaway coming? My pace too is
Ooh,
starting to struggle. Dot 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 dot. But for real, keep it up. This is nice on the ears compared to the usual monotonous running pods. Tired of listening to Graham Planks give the same interview 5 different ways. So
dang.
shout out
Shout
Brandon.
out, shout out Brandon until he started passively aggressively talking about Koros. But shout out Brandon for the interaction. And yeah, that's sick. That's a good way to describe it. Easy on the ears. I like that. It sounds very
Yeah.
seductive, I would say.
Yeah. That kind of what you said on the first pod was if one person like gets enjoyment out of it, that's worth it. So
True.
there you
Yeah,
go.
maybe we can call it here. This is the last episode.
Yeah, that's a wrap, right? Mission
We
complete.
achieved all our goals. Dang,
Yeah.
Brandon, Yeah, there's probably no Coral sponsorship coming until we eclipse a lot more follow. I mean, we're actually doing better, totally transparently. We actually have a decent following week to week. We got all of our listeners back based on the analytics I looked at. We had all of our listeners come back, or at least most of them that the analytics cared showed me. And then again, I am paying for it, so maybe it just wants to show me that. But and then plus some, so and some repeat listeners. So yeah, I mean, maybe in a couple thousand listens slash followers, I'll be able to pitch it to the big guys at Koros. But for right now, for right now, that Koros giveaway would just be my personal watch, and I don't really want to be doing that right now. So yeah, we'll stay tuned. But if the pay, I think your pace two sounds like it's just getting a little old. But yeah, I mean, shout out Koros. Pace three is the way to go if you're looking to upgrade it. Pace Pro is fantastic. I love it too. I guess I did get a bit of feedback from someone last week through a friend. I never necessarily said what I did for work. I just said where I work. And I don't want to go in, I don't have as cool of a story as Kyle had last week. But yeah, basically I am the community manager at Koros Wearables. So any type of social media you see, Koros Global or like Koros UK, anything Koros, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, I'm that guy. So if you want to DM me at Koros, then I'm going to see it. Comments, that's me. So yeah, that's what I do. I started at Koros a year and a half ago about in customer support and put my nose to the old grindstone and worked up, and now we're in the marketing department, brand and content department. So yeah, shout out Koros. I love working there, obviously from the house, because I feel like I've said that before, but that's what I do. And so if we couldn't put those two dots together, that he was asking for a Koros sponsorship, that technically would be my job. So maybe I can get this. That would be sick. We could definitely launch a giveaway, and maybe that would be how we slingshot ourselves to the top of the rankings.
Yeah, we just started giving away our listeners free shit. I mean, that's the key. I mean, that's the Mr. Beast model,
I was
actually.
just gonna say that the Mr. Beast model, just take all your earnings, which right now is zero, take all your earnings and then
Put that
just
into
give more shit
giveaways.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll work
But
on
no,
it,
that was
Brandon.
sick. Yeah, thanks for reaching out. I want more, or I hope more people reach out. It's always nice to hear. My dad told me he wasn't, I think he said he couldn't really hear us last week. I don't think that was really an issue. I think the audio in the car that he was listening in was pretty messed up. I drove it last night and it was like he for some reason had it faded so all the audio was coming out of the back speakers. So I think that's why he couldn't hear our audio. But yeah, always let us know if the audio's kind of shitty or whatever. And this week is kind of an asterisk because it's remote. But yeah,
Yeah.
the more input, the more interaction, the better because we want to hear from everyone that listens. But yeah, so far I would say most people that have mentioned it to me have liked it. A few people have said, "Holy shit, that's a really long podcast." But you know,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I got that
I
one
would
too.
rather I'd rather have that than like, oh, I want to hear you guys talk for more than 30 minutes. So people just need to figure out how to break up their podcast listening a bit better. You don't need to binge everything. You can listen to a 2 hour podcast in 3 or 4 30-minute segments or 2 1 hour segments, whatever floats your boat. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but don't complain to me that our podcast is too long.
Yeah, we just have so much quality content. We can't
Exactly.
possibly try to just squeeze it out. But I do think like on that note, we've just been kind of running it off the cuff, and I feel like there might be podcasts that are shorter if we don't have too much to talk about. But I feel like sometimes when you like if your podcast is too short, you probably don't have like if your podcast is too short, I just feel like that means you just don't have anything to talk about and you're kind of forcing it. Like I'd way rather it
Yeah.
be like someone be like, "Oh, it's so long," and it's like, well, we just are
Yeah.
kind of, chatting about stuff that we find interesting and being genuine to like what we're interested in, which is not like, oh, we're trying to just do bust this out in an hour, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Last week, I mean, we were definitely chatting about a lot of different stuff. and getting into the weeds. But I feel like even last week it was like 205, 207, and we could have kept going to. I feel like most times we can keep going. Like we'll always find more stuff to
Yeah.
talk about, but it's retaining like if we're gonna get really into the stuff, we got to build some type of background so people are interested once we get into the weeds until we start talking about really inclusive gunny stories or something like that, or I guess exclusive gunny stories, and then people just don't want to listen. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think it's better that we're basically getting to a certain length and then being like, oh, I think, we should cut it off here instead of being like, like, I think it's better to get to a certain time and be like, okay, we don't have anything more to talk about, or be like, okay, it's like pretty long. Like we can just cut it here instead of being like looking at the time and being like, are we at a fucking hour yet? So,
yeah, just squeezing every little second out of conversation. But yeah, I mean, moving on to a different thing. I want to hear your take. I have a take on like this past week, and I guess you're in Hawaii, so it kind of reveals itself. But what's your take? So this year, Christmas falls on, let's pull up this calendar here. Christmas falls on a Wednesday. So what days do you get off from work, like officially before any vacation or anything like that?
oh
Definitely
man,
Christmas.
let me look at my calendar. I think yeah, it's like Christmas, and I think it's like New Year's. I don't think we get any. I mean, Clavio has a bunch of like days off throughout the year. I'm not
Yeah,
complaining at all. We get like a bunch of like awesome days off. Yeah, it looks like Christmas and then yeah, it
just
looks
the
like
day.
yeah, just the day and then
Dang.
well, and then like New Year's looks like
Yeah.
actually honestly I don't know. I'm not even sure if we get New Year's off. I think I don't know. We probably
Yeah.
do. It's just not on my calendar, so I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. How
Oh
busy
yeah,
were
we
you
do.
this
We do.
past week?
Yeah, all of our offices are closed on January 1st. So we have
Nice.
January 1st off and then we have Christmas off. So, but we get like 15 or 17 days off
Yeah.
throughout the year, so I'm not complaining at all.
How busy were you the past week? So like the week leading into Christmas, that would have been the 16th to like the 20th or something. How busy were you?
I was really busy. Um, Basically like end of the fiscal year is like extremely and any like end of the quarter, end of the fiscal year is always super busy, especially in sales.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, I was really, really busy. I was trying to get like most of everything I had, like all the deals that were going to close in December, trying to get those actually like closed before I left. I did have to work yesterday for like a few hours, and then I'll probably work a little bit on Monday, and then we get back before the end of the year. So I'll get some work in the last few days to close a few more. But yeah, I was really busy just trying to close out most of my deals for like the end of the year, or like push the other ones into the beginning of the new year. But yeah, pretty busy. What about you?
Yeah, I would say the same. Probably less busy than someone in sales with like being concerned about closing out deals and everything. But through social media, it's getting all the posts out that we need. We have like Koros does basically a Spotify wrap, so making sure that goes out smoothly into next week, and then making sure obviously there's no people that are trying to place an order on Christmas Eve and throwing a fit on social media or whatever. But yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that crazy? I feel like the whole month of December when we were in school, I mean, college, I guess, was a little bit different, but especially high school, middle school was just a wash. Like after Thanksgiving, and I feel like in some corporate cultures, like your stereotypical kind of cubicle, 9 to 5, it could be the same, but it's like, and I think the same thing goes for that week after in most places. The week after Christmas to New Year's is there are days that you're supposed to work, but I feel like that week is just a crazy gray area. You're just like in the matrix and you're not really like no one's take like if you're not on PTO, everyone wants to be on PTO because half the company or whatever's on PTO, you're doing shit, but it's like it doesn't feel legal. Like it just feels like time is moving really slow and it feels like you're not supposed to be working because Christmas just happened, but there's a couple days in there that you are supposed to be working and no one really wants to. So yeah, I feel like next week, I not, yeah, I guess next week Christmas is a Wednesday. So like Thursday, Friday, and then I guess that'd be Monday, Tuesday of the week after. Christmas being on a Wednesday is kind of fucking with me because it's like the beginning of the week is I'm not going to work 23rd, 24th, 25th. Like my family's doing a lot of stuff around then. But once the 26th, 27th hits, it's like, all right, get back to work. It's like, it still feels like Christmas. I don't want to be working. And then it's a weekend, so you're not working. And then there's like a day or two before or New Year's Eve or New Year's, which I also have off. And it's like, you're supposed to be working again. It's like, it just doesn't feel right. I just feel like and this kind of goes back to last week. I feel like New Year's and Christmas should be closer together. That's a whole nother rant. But yeah, I feel like in high school, especially like my junior and senior year, my senior year, I was more physically present than anything. But I feel like once we got back from Thanksgiving break from T Givy, we were just
Oh God.
watching movies and shit, bro. It's like I miss that. I just miss having that feeling of get to Thanksgiving and then the rest of the year is a wash.
Yeah, welcome to hell, dude. No, just kidding. Yeah, it is a lot different.
Welcome to the rest of your life, son.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was actually talking to Val the other day. I thought this was pretty interesting. So like I think our experience in college like after Thanksgiving was kind of just washed because that was like my experience too. But I was talking
Yeah,
about because she was an engineering major
yeah,
and she was saying how like she actually kind of dreaded Thanksgiving because she would essentially just be like studying for finals the whole time.
damn.
And yeah, and we just like had to be super locked in, which definitely makes sense. Like I wouldn't say like marketing, I mean economics, depending on like what you're working on, it can be like a lot of writing. But yeah, I mean marketing is definitely not like the hardest degree.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, I think definitely depending on your degree, you can have different experiences with that stuff. But yeah, that was my experience too. And now it's like in sales, end of the year is always super busy. And also just in sales too, it's like a whole different thing, right? Like the upside is that you can make more money, but like the downside is that like you're never kind of not like you're never able you can like fully check out, but it also will directly affect like closing deals. So
Right. Yeah,
that's
that makes
kind of like
sense.
the tricky balance where it's like on Friday I could have just not worked, but I wouldn't have closed like I closed one like fairly large deal. Like that wouldn't have closed on Friday if I wasn't like available for that. So it's like
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a tough balance.
yeah, it is a balance. I miss there's many times I said it, I think I said in college a lot when you were still there, which I've kind of redacted, but I would say I peaked in high school and I think that was why. Like when I was in college, especially at Western, I was like, oh, I peaked in college and I was like, I feel like my junior and senior year with like college courses, and a lot of my professor or I guess not professors at that point, like teachers or whatever, were just kind of chilling. I feel like junior year was tough for the first bit and then you kind of were home free getting into schools and they were just like, oh, if you need a mental health day to apply to school, like you got it. Like don't come to school. And my senior year, I swear, bro, it was just a wash. Like I was not really there. I was running, but I was already committed to Western and like I wasn't really doing well on any classes, but it was like fine because I was already in school and yeah, that I just miss that. I find myself missing that because I live like a mile from the school and I see all these kids out in their cars at like 12 p.m. just having lunch, just like getting into shit. And it's like, oh man, I miss just the week before Christmas break when I'm gonna be off for 3 weeks, just getting into absolute dumb shit, like just standing outside for no reason. It's like cold as balls outside, but we're standing outside because it's the last week of school. It's like, damn, I miss getting into that shit.
Yeah. 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 As you grow up and yeah, things definitely change. But it's got its benefits, it's got its downsides at the same
Yeah,
time. So
yeah. I would say making money definitely is a benefit.
yeah,
Dead broke in high
exactly.
school, standing in the parking lot, just wasting away the Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, I agree. Um, all right, transitioning. What was the track thing you wanted to talk about, or a running
Oh,
thing,
it
a
was
related thing?
yeah, it wasn't track. It was very pertinent in my life. The return of the marathon project next
Oh
year.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Super
yeah.
interesting. It's it hit home because a lot of my now homies, shout out Noah Droddy, shout out, just retired, shout out. He ran. 209 there, which is nuts. One of our like a Western alum who
What?
hasn't
Yeah.
been the nicest to me, so I'm not going to name him, but people probably know who he is. But ran like 211 there, and then that's also where Marty. I never know how to pronounce his last name. He won it. Marty Hare. He ran like 209 or 208 high. And so, yeah, it was like during COVID background. It was in 2021, 2020, I think. And it's in outside of Phoenix or Sedona area. And it's like a circuit style course, like 4.5 miles or something. And I think they've done similar stuff. Like there's a McCurdy micro marathon. But this one is pretty high level because it had so like Sarah Hall won it. I can't remember what she ran, but it was pretty popular, and it obviously wasn't around for the past couple of years for whatever reason. And they just announced last week it actually the release got announced by FlowTrack, which I feel like is pretty big. So that was interesting. And a couple agents, shout out Josh Cox, has already kind of invested into it or like shown his interest in it with I feel like he is very predominant on the road scene. And it
Well, he
seems
did
like
he organized the first one.
yeah, and so maybe he's involved again or he's sending people, but yeah, it seems like it's going to be a really cool opportunity for people. Like I'm hoping it's built around Americans, but the thing I was going to say is they're doing it in two different events. So basically, how it's lined up right now, super interesting. Say it's the December 21st, but the 20th is going to be a quote unquote A race or something. And so the 20th is like the entry standard for men is sub 240 for the sake of conversation or 230 or something like that. So it's like you're not an Olympic trials qualifier, but you're a good guy. And then the next day is like the elite, and that's supposed to be a smaller field, and the entry standard is I don't know, 218, 216, whatever. I'm sure it's going to change by then just to max out the field as much as they can. But the most polarizing thing so far, the entry fee to get into that race, which is a domestic race, for the people in the A wave of so like sub 230 sub yeah I'm sure it's 230 for men is 500 smackers, and then the entry fee for the elite field unless you get this exclusive invite, which I'm not sure how you get. I'm sure they're going to be sending those things out like no other once they realize no one wants to pay this, but is $200 per elite. So it's like that's not very common. I think people
Do you pay? Do you
they
pay for
race.
any of these races? That like, did you pay for
No,
Chicago?
I haven't paid for a race yet. Even when I was debuting. So when I debuted in, or I was supposed to debut in Minnesota Twin Cities last year when it got canceled, I didn't pay for that. I didn't pay for my actual debut in Indy half marathon. The quickest thing that race organizers waive is the entry fee, and then you have to figure out your flights and hotels, and that's less or yeah less likely for those to get covered unless you're the top of the line, really cream of the crop of the field. But as of right now on the website, as I understand it, they're not waiving any entry fee, which I just don't believe. I mean, $200 for people who have a contract or whatever to run potentially, I don't know, a 3 or 4 minute PB is nothing. Like I would happily pay $200 if I'm gonna run 209 or two or whatever. But it's just not there. The whole point of charging people entry. Like the reason a Chicago marathon or a Boston marathon or a world marathon major can pay out the winner 100 to 250,000 to win is because of the entry fees that they charge everyone else. But
Yep.
I don't think those people are paying $500 to enter the Boston. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but $500 to enter a domestic race that's not a major, that's a literally 4.5 mile loop. I don't know how many people are paying that, especially because there is this entry standard that's faster than Boston. It just doesn't seem like it seems like in the same kind of ballpark as Grand Slam. It's like the $500 entry fee is a little wacky. The $200 entry fee is like also crazy. I'm not sure where all this is going to come from or who's going to be involved, but I feel like when they announced it, everyone was stoked on it. Then you look into it, it's like, what the hell? It's $500 to enter, even though I'm a sub 230 guy. Or for myself in the elite race, it's like, oh, I'm going to race on a different day, which is, I don't like that already because I really enjoy racing with people who are trying to break 5 hours when I'm trying to break 2:10, or people trying to break 3 hours. It's like the same race. There's a big sense of community there. It's a totally different day, which is going to result in a smaller crowd for sure. But it's also now you're kind of gatekeeping the people who are really going to bring the most amount of crowd. Like, I don't know. I'm not a huge, so I'm really interested in it. I'm definitely not writing it off. Slash, if they want to have me out and invite me, I'd be stoked to run it. But yeah, it's super interesting because I don't know. I was still in school at the first one, so I'm not sure if these are the same entry fees or not. But based on the comments on the Flow Track post and what other people are saying on the on the marathon project post, people are not stoked on it, which is not good because
So the
it's
sentiment that you've seen is that people are not psyched around the entry fee.
right. And it's because, yeah, because I think hypothetically it could be used as like a CIM killer. Like everyone goes to CIM to run fast. It's not World Athletics sanctioned or whatever. And the m most people say under 230 are going to get their entry fee comped because the elite field is massive there. But it's going to be increased there. And yeah, I just don't think people are going to want to pay when they can just run 2 weeks earlier at CIM, a proven course that's point to point, which is probably more of an appeal than a 4.5 mile loop. It's just, yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think they're gonna have to adjust it. I just don't see people wanting to break 220 or like, yeah, I mean, the Olympic trials qualifier window isn't even going to be open, but like pay $500 to go for that, whereas you could just literally go to CIM for free, or not for free, but you're not paying an entry fee at least. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I just looked it up. I looked up the cost of the like New York, Chicago, and Boston. So Chicago and Boston. At Chicago, it's 245 for U.S.
Yeah,
residents, and then 255. And this is non-elite. I mean, again, this could be wrong, but this is what Google said. Uh,
yeah,
and then for like international individuals, it's 255. Boston for qualified accepted runners, it was 250. And then for what was the other one? I looked at New York. It was
mhm,
I think it was like 250 for New York Roadrunner members, and then like 315
yeah,
or something like that for
yeah.
non-New York. Yeah, 255 for New York Roadrunner
Damn.
members and 315 for non-members. So, but the point being, it's basically you the elite field is paying what would be considered a normal-ish fee, and then
For a major.
for 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 a major, and then for the like non-elite field, they're basically paying double a normal fee,
Yeah, you could
which
run Boston twice.
right. I would imagine it really depends. I would imagine they're probably doing one of two things. They're probably at minimum just trying to make sure they cover their costs. Like I feel like I don't know. This is like a completely uneducated on this specific subject, but I remember when they did the first one, I felt like they just did that because they needed almost to create an event to like keep sponsorships engaged. Like it was such a weird time with COVID. Like there was a really good reason to hold it, even if they like potentially like lost some money on it, because it was just
Hmm.
like, hey, let's go try to put on a fast marathon, provide value to sponsors, like get our like racers tuned up, etc., whatever. Um, and I feel like there was like, hey, we need to do something because like the sport is in such a weird spot because all these races are just not happening, right? Like
Yeah,
that's almost like
right.
protecting the athletes, like sponsorship, because who knows like what like shoe companies at the time were thinking like, hey, can we afford to keep these? And
Right.
obviously, I think outdoor industries went crazy, um, you know, after the weirdness at the start of COVID because so many people started doing outdoor things. But anyways, my point being, I feel like there was almost like a necessity to do the first one,
Yeah.
even if some people may have lost some money on it.
Hmm.
And it was also like super bare. Like I remember the first one being super bare bones.
Right.
So I wonder if the second one they're trying to be like, hey, we want to do this again. The first one was a success, but like, let's make sure we either pay for everything fully that we do, and make sure there's no one that's losing money, or hey, let's even try to turn a profit as like race organizers.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's probably some they're using those numbers conservatively to try to make sure they're not losing money. I don't know though for sure. I mean, that's just my guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's just it's wild because it seems like I said, you can just literally go to CIM. I don't know where they cut off where you're gonna get your entry fee comped, but I had never even ran a marathon before, and I got at least my entry fee comped with some additional help, which is yeah, I'm not sure where that like as a 220 guy where that line would be.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's probably just a conservative take because they also don't have the like they don't have a real proof of concept probably, even though they did it a few years ago.
Yeah,
Like they don't know how many people ultimately will show up. And yeah, they're probably just trying not to lose money. I mean, I think anything like if they can make money, they should. Obviously, like if
right.
people are willing to pay for it, then they should do it. But yeah, I mean, I understand your perspective, like, and other people's perspective of like, hey, like paying that much for a race that we're trying to like run in an elite field where like I could go to a Boston or New York or wherever and not have to pay anything. I understand that. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, that's my lowest feel. I haven't been keeping up with much because it's like, I mean, the whole BU stuff is a whole different story. I, I feel like I've been out of the loop on running, but I saw that and I was like kind of stoked because I was like, oh, that would work out with like it'd be a good time slash like mix it up, do something different. And I was like, I'm not paying $200 to run a marathon. I'll tell you that right now.
yeah,
So if I need to go back to CIM or whatever, like I'll do that instead. But like, yeah, it was interesting. And then I was obviously not even considering looking at the field for the or like the entry fee for the other one. It's like $500. Like, bro, what is going on?
yeah. That is expensive. That is really expensive. Um,
But yeah.
yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with. I saw that it got announced, which I think is cool, but besides that, I didn't look too far into it. I did have something on a related note, unless you had anything else you wanted to say on that.
No.
All right. Well, on my related note, I was just gonna say, kind of coming back to the Grand Slam track thing, they
Ooh,
announced a bunch of the remaining folks that they needed
yeah.
to sign to like complete the roster. I had
Okay.
kind of two things that I was curious to like get your thoughts on. The
Okay.
first being, so there's a lot of really big stars that are obviously in Grand Slam track, but there's
Yeah.
also some of the biggest names in the sport that didn't are not on the roster, and I would imagine not going to make the roster, like Shakari and
Mm,
Noah Lyles, and obviously you could kind of go down the list on the distance side where it's like kind of a mix
yeah.
um, of like big stars, but also like some of the people they signed this week, and maybe it's because I'm not always familiar with all of the events as much as like the distance
Mm,
ones, but even in the distance ones, they signed some people that I'd never heard of.
yeah.
So I was gonna ask you, why do you think the Noah Lyles, the Shakaris of the world are not signing with Grand Slam?
I, I mean, totally speculation. I feel like there's a number of reasons. Like I think of uh El Purrier. Like I was like, why is she not doing it? Because she's like she won the 5K and the or she made the 15 team this past USA's. Like, oh, she's having a kid in a couple months. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Like she was probably offered way back when. I feel like these people were offered a while ago, which is I don't know. Then you can it's definitely a finger pointing game. Like, why would yeah, of course. I mean, Netflix just released season 2 of Sprint. It's like, of course they're gonna just go down the roster of that and say like Noah, yes, Shakari, yes, TT Terry, yes, like all these people, like of course. I feel like when those people were offered, it could have, I mean, I doubt it, but it could. have still been too much of a brainchild to be like, yeah, Noah Lyles, let me associate my name with this because I feel like those people especially have this crazy image that if for whatever Grand Slam doesn't work, which like we've touched on before, it might not. Do they like what are the pros and cons of Noah Lyles being like, yeah, I died on the hill of Grand Slam, or like I got beat at Grand Slam, even though I'm supposed to be like really good. Or Sha'Carri, I feel like she's very not fragile is a horrible word for it, but like she's very kind of streaky, and so she could either be like get toasted at Grand Slam, and then hypothetically, meet directors would be like, "Oh, you got toasted in Grand Slam. Let's not have you back to the Diamond League." Or you could be like, "Oh, I won Grand Slam, and I was making X amount of dollars per week or per meet or whatever, but it really fizzled out, and Grand Slam's out of business now, and now you're like kind of the champion of the losers bracket essentially in fantasy football, which it never would be, but I feel like it could have been that early of no one really knew what was happening and they were just listening to Michael Johnson. I don't know who pitches it, but it could have been Michael Johnson was saying like, hear me out. Like, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to pay you this amount of money. I think to those people, also Noah Lyles in general and Sha'Carri, I'm sure they don't really care about the money. And I feel like that's one of the biggest appeals of it. Like, hey, I'm going to do this much, but you have to race this often, which I feel like sprinters generally don't race in like April of a world championship year in September. Like I think that's kind of out of practice, like 5 months of racing. Um, so they could just be like, the money, I don't care about the money. I want to do my schedule, or I don't want to be training in March. I want to be training in July because my race isn't until 3 months away. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the distance people, I feel like there's a lot more like that side of it. I have no clue. I think they're probably very exclusive with that of who they offered. And I think they probably had to consider who would be a good doubler. The distance group is a 3K, 5K. And so it's like, would a 10K person be really good at doubling 3K or like be relevant enough to be like a 3K, 5K doubler? Like maybe not. I mean, if they're just like super strong, like I think of um I don't want to name any names that could possibly listen to the podcast. I mean, Mo was really good at everything, but like a Galen Rupp recently, like he he probably still could fight for a spot on the team, or Connor Mance. They could still fight for a spot on the team over 10K, but would they be competitive in a 3K, 5K double 4 weeks out of the year? Probably not. So I feel like to me, at least coming from like a distance rows perspective, it's like, why wouldn't you offer, I don't know, Galen or like, I don't know, maybe Piker could have gotten offered a spot or not, but it's like, oh, they might not have the wheels to even compete over 3K versus the best in the world because it's kind of this like mid range. So I think distance probably has a lot more thought. And then sprinters, I mean, they have Sprint, the document, like those top of the line sprinters have the documentary, and then I feel like they're doing a lot more commercials with like Beats and like Gatorade and Nike. I just feel like there's a lot more money in sprinting, so maybe they could have just been like, "No, I'll pass," and then just built out the field. But yeah, I thought that too because it is there. Like at the end of the day, Grand Slam is huge, and it's going to be a lot of money, and I hope it works. But there are some names that are just like, oh, that's a Grand Slam racer versus like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, of course you're gonna have this person, or of course you're gonna have Sydney McLaughlin, but it's like, oh, now you're adding this person. Like, who is that again? He's an American, but who is it? Like, I'm not exactly sure his relevance, which is like Grand Slam was supposed to be like if you look at the men's 15 field, it's like 800, 1500 field. It's like, yeah, Cole, Josh Kerr, uh, man, that's such a bummer that I can't remember it. But like very similar vibes to that. And I could look it up, but I'm too lazy to. So yeah, I feel that. I wish I had a good answer, but that is my answer for sure.
Yeah. Well, so one thing, so I think it has a lot to do with the commitment to all the races. Like obviously you can make up
Yeah,
or not make up, but you could get hurt and then obviously they can't make you race, right? But I think a big part of it is like it is a lot of races like stacked on the front relatively early part of the season and that you have
exactly.
to do it. And that like I mean if you think about it for like take someone like Grant Fisher, right?
Hmm.
just as an example, how does Grant Fisher balance? And I'm not saying he wouldn't be able to balance it, but like he's a 10K guy, right? But he's going to be racing the 3K, 5K. He's going to race
Right.
8 races before he does a 10K at USA's. Like, is he even going to run a 10K before his USA day, or before USA's? Like
Right.
that's a lot of racing. And I think for the sprinters, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, obviously like Noah and Shakari, they're making, I would imagine, millions of dollars. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd always love to make more, but I would imagine their thought process has to be like, hey, I could definitely make a huge bag from sprint, but I'm going to make the biggest bag by, hey, being the bona fide best in the world. And
Hmm.
that is still done by winning the world championships or the Olympics, right?
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, it is a lot of racing and it definitely affects training differently. Like I heard there were yeah, I mean like if you're trying to run a 10K at the beginning of the season originally, but then now like at sound running the 10, if you're going with like a I don't know, even like a 1500 guy like Josh Kerr has ran a half marathon before, so maybe he was going to try to hit the 10K, but now he's doing the 15 800 double, and it's like, well, now he's not going to do that for at least another year. So it definitely affects training a lot differently. For, I mean, bulk of the races are in April for a year. April and May, I guess, but in a year that the world championships are in September. So it's like it also is just a decision you have to make and be like, I know I can be locked in, and especially for Grand Slam, you have to be locked the fuck in to be like competitive in these fields. I know I can be locked in racing well for 5 months and then like really pop off at the very end of that 5 month period is also kind of a gamble in itself. But yeah, I just looked up the field too. I'm sure you did, but uh, yard was that one I was missing, which is crazy, like the men's 1500 field. But no hate. But Devin Allen, like, I don't know, man. Like, when I think of Devin Allen, I think he's a novelty guy who has a lot of sponsorships and endorsements and NFL player. Like, his whole story is dope. But is he a Grand Slam racer? No. Like, to me, he's not.
well, and so, dude, that's what I think is interesting. That was the next thing I was going to say is like, it seems like some of the people they were signing, like, are not, I don't know. Like, I don't fully understand all the people they signed. And I'm like, what's the angle? Like, is this
Hmm.
supposed to be like, what's the approach here, right? Like, it's almost kind of like a boxing UFC conversation. Like, are they trying to pull like a UFC, like, hey, what we're doing is we're putting the best in the world against the best in the world. That's like the standard. Or are we doing like a
Right.
boxing like Jake Paul take where we're like, well, we're trying to create stories that like people will ultimately just watch, like the level of
Yeah.
performance. And obviously it's definitely somewhere in between. I'm not trying to say that like Grand Slam is anything like Jake's Paul bullshit, but like, you know what I mean? It's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting like I don't know, you'd think I don't know. Like when I remember when I announced Grand Slam or they announced Grand Slam, and I was like, everyone is going to want to be a part of this. And then now it's like, and don't get me wrong, they have you know whatever it is, 70% of like the best athletes in every event. So I don't
Yeah.
want to like take away from it by any means, but it is interesting that there is some people that I don't fully understand that are like bona fide racers, and I also think and I'm kind of curious what your thoughts on this are too. But like, do you remember like at the Olympic 100-meter final, Sharika, I think it was Sharika Jackson, right?
Hmm.
She was the one who got hurt for the 100 and 200.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I felt like it took away a little bit from the women's 100-meter final. Obviously, like I think, Shakari and Julian Alfred would have ultimately probably medaled anyways. But it's like,
Hmm.
you like wondering, and obviously this is all a part of it, right? Staying healthy, all
Yeah.
that stuff. But it's like
Yeah.
you want to see like the bona fide best three like race. That's what makes the Olympics so dope and like world championships so
Right.
dope. So it's like I kind of wonder just like as track fans, like maybe for track fans like us who and you can speak what your opinion is, but like for me, like knowing, okay, sure, like Noah isn't there, like the race
Hmm.
could maybe be better if Noah was there, or same thing in like some of the distance events.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, like is that going to take away from it, or are they not trying to? One, I mean, I'm still interested to see how everyone does, but like it will take away from it knowing like, well, there are some like pretty key players potentially missing,
Yeah.
and but maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know. Just a thought I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it goes well in my mind, it'll be expanded to a point next year where it'll literally be everyone, like a descending order list, and people can't refuse it. Like I said earlier, maybe Noah just said nah. And like maybe, I don't know, another person, like maybe people just said no because it's not worth it or I don't want to gamble or whatever. But I'm sure it would be way cooler if it was, yeah, there's going to be someone in the world. I mean, Jakob's not in it, and Jakob's the best in the world. So
Right.
there's gonna be someone at a lower caliber, like a lower level that's running better than someone, I mean, very biased in the distance events. So there's gonna be someone, say, that's running better than like Josh Kerr. Like Josh Kerr he's very good at peaking at the right time. And so if Josh Kerr gets waxed in the first two Grand Slams because he's used to coming from a strength and now he's having to run 800s and 15s, there's going to be someone out there running better, whether it's like a Hobbs Kessler or even a Cooper Tier or someone like that. There's going to be people who are running better than these people involved. And then it's going to be like, yeah, are you getting more popular because out of hate? Like, oh, you should have had Hobbs on there, or you should have had like Jakob on, or like whatever person. Or is it going to be like, oh, next year you can have it? Or will they acknowledge that? Because, yeah, I mean, they have some of the best, they don't have the best. And that is kind of surrounding the question of why won't why don't they have the best? Because the idea was to have, say, the podium race 4 weeks out of the year, which would be nuts. And they arguably still do in some events, but yeah, other events like Devin Allen, again, no hate, but it's like I don't know if he's making any podium anytime soon. And it's just an interesting balance for sure. And I do think it's like there's a lot of thought of who's going to bring the most eyes too. There are some people on the roster, if you want to pull up a Grand Slam roster and look down the roster, there are some people, in my opinion, that are racers that have just been brought on to bring eyes because they have a good social media or they bring a different dynamic, which is great. But also in that light, well, you got to get Sha'Carri or you got to get Noah Lyles or like Jakob who bring the most eyes regardless. Like they're really good, but also Sha'Carri brings eyes regardless, and Noah
Yeah.
brings a lot of eyes for better or worse. And so, yeah, I feel like you just have to really. It feels like they're kind of half sending in a couple of different areas, but I'm sure there's a lot of different logistics behind it that again, unfortunately, we just don't know. And so maybe there's plans and like there's all the what are they called? Not racers, but competitors or challengers, I think is what they use. They
Yeah.
still have four rotating challengers per event. So like if you're a challenger and I'm a racer, you might only get to go to the Jamaica meet and then they could replace you. And then like I'm racing at all four meets. So maybe it's like in this grand scheme that like, oh, Noah is gonna come to the California meet or the Miami meet and like shit on everyone hypothetically and then not come back. Like maybe that's and possibly get paid more because it's an appearance fee thing. So that could be also it could be a financial decision. Can we afford to bring Noah to four different things with his appearance fee? No, but we can
Yeah.
bring him to Miami and
Yeah.
announce him like the week or two before and be like you said on the first episode, the Jamaica stadium tickets are might not be selling well. Let's bring in Noah Lyles, and then it'll at least do something to the sales, like something like or like Sharika Jackson. Like maybe they won't announce it as a racer, and then you can be a challenger in Jamaica, and it'll be this much cooler story line that'll be like, oh, hometown hero Sharika Jackson is racing as a challenger. She could win this amount of money, and she's quote unquote earning her spot for next year. And so it could just be a big like storyline narrative thing too.
Yeah. No, for sure. It'll be really interesting. I mean, hopefully the way it is like this first year, this is like year one, iteration one. Like this is gonna be, it's only gonna get better and better. So hopefully that's the case. Yeah. And I mean, I think you can be pessimistic about it all day long, just like anything. It's just like definitely, my takeaway every time is like I do have some things that I'm pessimistic about Grand Slam track, but I am super excited to see how it works out. And more than anything, I want it to be successful because I do think that like track and field needs more structure because clearly, like, the current state of how things have been for so long have like led to like issues with its popularity outside of like core
Hmm.
track fans. And you have to do something like this to like I almost think like a similar esque UFC model where it's like everyone's in the same
Hmm.
league. But I do think that like forcing people to race every time is probably not always going to be ideal. So then how do you, I think you almost just have to like build up in different races. Yeah, I mean I think they're doing the right thing. It's just I don't know, how do you fine tune it and tweak it to like really capture people's attention every event?
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So
Yeah, it's something. I mean, it's going to have a lot of eyes regardless, but yeah, it could just be some storytelling, but seems like maybe they just said nah because of what one reason or another, or El Purrier's having a kid. So it could just
yeah,
be personal, like my
shout out
vacation
to
time is
her.
all of April. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really cool that Ellie's having another kid. So I guess I mean on that note, she probably won't run. I can't imagine she'll be running this year at Worlds,
Yeah,
right? 'Cause
probably not, which
yeah,
opens up a at least one, likely two USA spots, 15 or 5K, and USA or World Indoors is this year too, I'm pretty sure.
she came back better than ever than her first kid. So I imagine she's just gonna come back and just absolutely crush again. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it'll be interesting. That stuff's really cool too.
Yeah, it is very cool to, I mean, it's cool from a life perspective that most runners that I think of, women that have had kids, have come back either better or the same, because I feel like it's a big narrative that, or I mean, I can't imagine. I'll never have to even think about it of having a kid's going to do to my body. But it is cool to think about, like, and I think um, as we get older, like I know people who have had kids, especially on the roads, but people who have come back to the track that I know have kids and are happier because they have a family and they're able to do it, but also just had to kind of have bite the bullet and take off 9 months or a year, and then it's totally fine because while it seems like time is really fast on the track, you can still do that, which is really cool. And now she like it didn't fuck her up enough, or like she didn't wasn't worried about it, so she's doing it a second time. I can almost guarantee she's going to come back. So I mean, it's cool that you can modern science or training or whatever, you can have a kid and then come back.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see her post where she was like, "This is not like her story where she's like, this is not a retirement post. This is
Yeah.
this like someone can have kids and have a career." And I'm surprised. I didn't like look into the comments. I'm surprised. I mean, obviously there's people that are going to be negative about that stuff, but I don't know. Like, obviously Ellie already had a kid and was absolutely crushing it like this year after I think it was last year when she had her first baby. So it's like I don't know why anyone would be assuming that anyways. Doesn't make any sense to me. But
Yeah.
um anyways, yeah, shout out Ellie. It's pretty cool. She's obviously like she's been so good for so long and I I guess we won't see her really race again unless she races before she has her next baby, but we won't see her race again. Well, I guess 2026 we will, because I guess the Ultimate Championship. Yeah, so never mind. We'll see her race next year
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
following year.
Yeah,
So
not
never
this
mind.
not this year because I think the baby's due in what, May? I don't
I think
know. I'd
so.
have to go
I
back
think
to the
so.
post, but yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I don't even know how we got talking about that, but it will be. Anyways, Grand Slam track. I'm like super fascinated, and yeah, I mean, There's so many interesting things over the next few years that are going to be so cool track. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, not a running podcast.
Not a running podcast, but we had to get our talk in because we didn't really talk about running that much last week. But yeah, I mean it works out. I will try a shorter podcast this week. For all you haters, I have a I have to go to dinner with the old grandparents here soon and get gas on the way because gas be running out in cars that you drive. So yeah, but yeah, to kind of wrap it up, I guess we could hit a bro, hear me out, and then I guess I'd have to change and get to dinner 30 minutes away in 20 minutes. So
Okay,
time
you got
management has
one?
not been time management has not been great lately. Yeah, but on that in that same vein, bro, hear me out. Getting to the airport 2 hours in advance of the holidays is overrated if you know what you're doing. And especially if I mean the Denver airport can be crazy, but I'm gonna try it again sometime, maybe on the way out, just the 20 minutes before your flight takes off. Overrated. You get to not waste time in the airport. And yeah, so bro, hear me out. Getting to the airport 2 hours in advance, waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will say, like, to that, it's super true. I feel like 9 times out of 10, you can cut things way too close and make it
Yeah.
work. But obviously, it just takes that one time for it to like really fuck you over, and then you're like, okay, this was dumb. And yeah, you just have to be get bit by it once. But yeah, I would say 9 times out of 10, when you feel like you're not going to make something, unless it's like clearly obvious that you can't make it, you can, and especially if you're motivated enough,
Yeah.
you can kind of like make it work a lot of the time. If as long as there's like kind of like a slim chance that you can figure it out, you know?
Yeah, I think
So
the less you care about it, like I was very stress free because I was like, I'm doing everything I can. I'm driving way over the speed limit and I'm gonna sprint. I know when I get in the airport, the less stressed you are. And then I was just like, if I don't get it, I just get to house beers in the airport. You're gonna make it. But if you're like really stressing out, I feel like people with kids and stuff, and they're just like, oh, we're not gonna make it. We're gonna be late. I just feel like then you start fucking up and you can't find your ID in the airport or you leave your wallet in the bathroom or some shit. Then that's when mistakes start to happen. So you just got to be like, I'm gonna make it or I'm not. And if I'm not, then I'll just get on a shitty flight and it'll be fine. But if you're like, oh, I'm never gonna make it, like I'm so worried if I don't make this flight, then yeah, you're definitely not gonna make it. So yeah, you just gotta be like, yeah, I'm gonna make it or not. And if I do, dope. If not, even better, hypothetically. Airport
yeah.
beer is pretty high up there on the tier rankings.
Yeah, if the universe doesn't think you care about making it, it'll be like, all right, we'll let him make
Yeah, we'll let this one slide. We'll turn the other cheek on this guy and
it.
he'll make it.
Oh, you really want to make it? Fuck you. You're not making it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, yeah. Well, you should go hang out with fam. I should go enjoy Hawaii. Next week, uh we'll probably be back in person. And right?
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to wait till Monday, like the 20 or the 30th. But then we can
Yeah.
just post it like the same day or the next day. But
Yeah.
yeah, next
Dang.
episode we'll be back in person. Happy holidays to everybody. For anyone who's been tuning in, we really appreciate it. The episodes are
Yeah.
just going to keep getting better and better. Thanks. If you did listen to the entire remote podcast, shout out to you guys. Um, and yeah, happy holidays. Bro, hear me out. 2025, gonna be pretty nice. I think it's gonna be a good year.
Oh, I hope everyone just cringed. That was miserable, bro. I hope everyone just cringed.
Dude, no one made it this far. It's fine. It's just you and
Uh,
me. Maybe Val will listen the whole time. If someone hits me with a bro, hear me out, 2025 is gonna be pretty good, then I'll know that someone actually listened. But till that point in time, that
all right.
cringe can just live here at the end.
Clickbait. We'll clickbait
Brian.
it.
All right. All right. Chuck, I love you. Well,
All right.
guys, we'll be back next week.
Yeah, catch you boys later. And girls. Please, girls can
And
listen to
girls,
this podcast too. It's not just a boys
not just a
podcast.
guys podcast. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you next week.